Hello everyone. So we're going to do today the torso pattern, and so for the torso the first and most important thing is we need the bodice. So here I have the front bodice and here's the back bodice. Okay, so if you can see that there's a seam allowance as well added, and we've got two darts, one at the waist and one at the shoulder level. Okay, so this is done again on a half pattern, which is why we say that this is on fold. So I've marked for the front, and here we have all the markings and detailings done for the back as well. Okay, so two darts at the back. Only thing is the dart at the back here on the shoulder is quite smaller, and whereas it on the waist it's quite bigger. Okay, so we have got the two patterns, basic patterns ready. From the basic patterns now we're going to make the torso. Okay, so to start with, I have my pattern paper laid over here. Okay, I'm going to keep my front bodice here on the top. All right, and we are going to look at certain measurements which we require to make the torso. To start with, the first measurement, so I'm just going to write the measurements down over here. So we will need the measurements, which is basically the hip depth. Okay, so according to the size that I have taken, the hip depth measurement comes to around 19 centimeters. Okay, this is basically for the front. So the front hip depth is slightly more, whereas the back hip depth is coming to around 18 centimeters. Okay, so if you have to convert in inches, this would be around 7.5 and this would be approximately 7. Okay, and then when it comes to the next measurement, we have got the hip round. So our hip round, according to the measurement chart that we have used, the hip round that I have got is around 96 centimeters. Okay, so 96 centimeters is the full hip round, so which means the whole hip circumference is 96. So we need only for one part, which means we have to find out the hip arc. So the hip arc, again the measurement is going to be 96 divided by 4. Okay, because we have to basically calculate for the front and the back separately. So for the hip arc over here, we are getting 96 by 4, around 20. Yeah, the 24. 24 is the hip arc that I'm getting. So let us just write down the measurements for the front and back separately. So 24 centimeters for the front hip arc, we definitely will be using 24 centimeters minus 1 centimeter. We're just reducing 1 centimeter because we are basically not having extra fullness over here for the front, whereas on the back we do have extra fullness, so we will add 1 extra centimeter over there. So here we have 23 centimeters, and on the back we have 24 plus 1, which is 25 centimeters. So this is basically a random calculation of how you're going to create an ease before even you start your construction. Okay, so if we do this calculation first and keep, what happens is our process becomes much easier when we go forward creating the whole pattern. Okay, so I'm just writing down over here so that it is clear for all of you. You can do this corresponding to the measurements that you have, and then we will start with creating the torso pattern. Okay, so let's get started with the torso pattern. Now, just to clarify your confusion of why we're doing a torso is because from a basic bodice, we are basically trying to manipulate our pattern to get a torso, because we have to in the end create a coat, a trench coat pattern. So for that, we basically use a torso draft as the base, and then we try to make the manipulations accordingly. So when we do the trench coat pattern, we'll go with the first one, a very basic pattern, and then we'll try to do the more advanced versions. Now, once we do the torso, the next step is we are basically going to elongate the the neckline and also the armhole areas, etc. Based on that, we will also be drafting the sleeve as well today. Okay, so let's get started with these two. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to place my pattern over here. Okay, placing it approximately in a space where we don't have to keep on moving it too much. So either you can tape it or you can use a paperweight or anything for that matter. So I'm not taping it as such, I'm just keeping some rulers here. Based on this, I'm just going to give only the outline of the neck, outline over here, outline over here. Based on that, I'm just going to do some small simple markings. Okay, so let me mark the outline first. We have the measurement here, we do have the measurement over here as well. Okay, so we are marking the outlines. Now this paper that I'm using is sort of like a transparent paper, and I've done my outline markings with a marker. So what happens is, even after I finish my rough outline markings over here, I can still go back and I can mark all these details like the darts and everything. I can mark later on. Okay, so now based on this, so this is what we are having, a small measurement over here, and this is basically extra allowance. Even here this is the extra allowance, but I'm just keeping the allowance as it is to be marked. Okay, you can fold along this line. Okay, and we can just draw. Again, we can keep on, because it's not straight, which is why I'm folding it twice. There's a slight curve, so we are using the curve, we're giving the outline. Okay, okay, so now I have my rough draft over here ready, and now I'm going to make the changes to convert this into a torso pattern. So to do the torso, we have several steps to do this, but right now I'll just give you the most easiest one, because we are not having a dart over here. So generally for torsos, we also give a small cut over here and we can make the torso. Right now for us, the darts are spaced over here. So based on that, I'm just going to show you a basic outline of how to create a simple torso. So what we are going to do is, we are going to start using our tape, and let's look at our measurements. First thing, we have to mark the hip depth measurement. So the hip depth which we have for the front is 19 centimeters. So we are going ahead and marking the 19 centimeters. So there's no enough space over here, so which means I'll have to add extra paper. So let me just add extra paper and then I will show it to you. Okay, so now there is enough space over here for us to mark. So let's go ahead and first finish marking our measurement, 19 centimeters. So I have 19 centimeters down over here. And after we mark the 19 centimeters, which is basically your hip depth, I have to mark it again over here as well, so that we can kind of try to make it look like a rectangle outline. So we increase the space over here. Okay, so this is what we have marked on both the lines, and now we are going to mark the hip arc, which is going to be along the circumference. So the hip arc that we have calculated for the front is 23 centimeters. So let's go ahead and mark that. Which is almost quite equal to our extra allowance measurement that we have provided over here. So we have got this, extra measurement that we have given for allowance, which is almost equal to 23. Okay, so I'm going to mark the 23 down as well, so that we can kind of make it look even. So 23 over here as well. And now we'll just connect all these together in the form of rectangle at right angles. Okay, now what we have to do is, before we go ahead and mark the curve for making the torso, we have a random measurement which we need to actually mark, sort of like, giving a little bit edge for the curve, because basically if you see, for a body, we've got the bust which is expanded, and then the waist which generally tapers and comes in, and then you have the hip line which generally takes a shape outside. So for that, what we do is, at the waistline, again I'm repeating, it is at the waistline, we go inside by 2 centimeters. So we just have to go inside and mark 2 centimeters in, which comes almost equal to our waistline, just maybe a 2 points more than the measurement that we have. And when we have this measurement, what we have to do is basically we are going to start curving our outline. So you can use a hip curve if you have, and we can basically start curving the outline randomly from here, touching this 2 centimeter point, and then straight away we'll give a curve. So hip curves work better in this case. We can touch it to the extra measurement which we have given over here. So likewise, if you see, we have created an outline which resembles a torso. Now to give more depth to it, we have to use a marker to cover the outline and finish it properly. Okay. So for that, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the block, which is the basic one, inside in such a way that I can actually get the correct outline and I can do the markings properly. Okay, so corresponding to the measurement and everything that we have marked over here. So I'm trying to if you can see, I can see, I can see the details which is mentioned inside. So based on that, now I'm going to use a marker to give the outline so that I can understand which part I have to expand, which part I have to reduce. Okay, so if you want to, before you go ahead with the marker, what you can do is you can even give an outline using your pencils. Okay, so in the outline that we're giving with the pencil, let us just go ahead and circle these areas for the neckline. Mark over here for the shoulder and here for the armhole. So I'm just going ahead with the points that I have marked, and it is kind of corresponding to the outline that I have below as well. So you can see that's exactly why we use this as a base, so that we can make sure that we are not doing a measurement which can intentionally maybe or unintentionally go wrong. Okay. So if you see, the marking was actually over here, but now we have to basically taper our line to the 2 centimeter point that we have done, and then we have our hip curve over here. Okay, so this is basically the outline that we have generated. Now since we are going to do a coat pattern which basically requires the outline to be slightly more expanded, because the coat is basically used to be worn on top of something, so we have to give that extra allowance over here. So for that, what I'm going to do right now is I have to give the allowance over here at the neckline and over here as well when it comes to the armhole. So I'm going to go down by just sort of like an expansion. Here I'm going to give an expansion of 1 centimeter. Okay, same way here as well, I will give an expansion of 1 centimeter. I'll give the expansion over here also 1 centimeter. But when I'm coming down, since usually the shoulder tapers, what we are going to do is here we will give expansion of 1 centimeter. I mean expansion over here like this way, 1 centimeter, but on the top we will try to reduce it by just half a centimeter. Okay, because we have to show the tapered edge. So likewise, and from here we are going to go down by also 1 point. I mean the shoulder usually, no, the armhole usually requires more space, so we will give 1.5 centimeter from this point, 1.5 centimeter down, so it corresponds to this point which we have marked. And then we have the expansion over here, so we will just keep the same level, which is 1.5 centimeters throughout, not just only here, but we'll go ahead and mark it even over here as well. So let us mark the 1.5 centimeter like this over here and here. Okay, so we'll taper the whole thing. Now let's mark everything with the marker, and then it looks a little bit more cleaner for us when we are trying to make the measurements, when we are trying to give the curves and everything. So again, use a French curve again, please. So you can keep going ahead like this, mark the expansion overall, and then we can connect the points so that it becomes a little bit more cleaner for us to understand and we avoid making mistakes. Again, an expansion over here, so it corresponds to this point. Let's give an expansion like this. Again, an expansion like this, but tapering down. So because when it comes down over here, it basically tapers slightly, so we'll Look at that point. And now from here, we are going to go ahead, curve inside and expand like this. Okay, so what happens is generally whatever measurement we have taken for our armhole, it becomes bigger. Okay, so if I have initially taken 8 inches, that was my measurement, technically 8 inches. Right now it becomes more. So if I have to convert in centimeters, the half of the armhole, 8 inches, was coming to almost like 21. Okay, 21 centimeters. So now let us just check again. So right now we have around 23.5 centimeters expansion, which we have given, which is quite, normal for a coat, because we have to make sure that we have enough amount of space and enough amount of allowance while we are making a coat. So based on that, you can see how we have expanded this. Now let us make all the details inside, which is, the darts and everything. Let's mark everything and then we'll go ahead with the cutting. So as you can see over here, the front torso pattern is complete. We have given the outline and we can see the clear distinction between the two patterns, right? Between the initial one and the final one. So here we have got the extension and we have given the expansion as well. And we have given the curve, which is generally there for a torso expansion. Now it depends on the kind of style of your trench coat that you're trying to make. We can even give it a straight line, or we can give, more allowance, etc. So this is the basic outline that we have created for the front. And now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the back.